In this video, I'm going to discuss three charts that are in the Options Analysis website. I'm going to show you where the option historical chart is. Then we're going to go look at this option skew charts, and then we'll go to charts and walk through all the different capabilities that exist inside our chart function. This is the home page that you land on when you first log in. We're going to use the stock symbol JPM, which stands for JP Morgan, and we're going to start by going into the option chain by clicking chain in the gray box. The option chain loads. Only 15% of the strikes from the current close are shown as default, and only the September-August options are shown. To see others, you'd have to check their box and click the update button. We're going to show how you can chart each one of these options by clicking on the option symbol shown here. This is the 36 strike August 12th options expiring in 7 days. Currently have a delta of 78, an IV of around 25. Very tight bid-ask spread. I click on the symbol. The first thing that loads is a small stock chart. We notice that JP Morgan had a downtrend around the May time period, stabilized a bit, and has been sort of on a slow uptrend. It's currently sitting just above 36, making 36 slightly in the money. Here's the bid ask of the 36 call. It started high. As the stock came down, it drops and has been sort of the same, somewhere below 2 ever since. The IV been oscillating between 35 and 40 for quite a while. Lately has dropped down to 25. It had a high delta. That dropped off as the stock dropped, but the delta is coming back, which means that the option prices are moving almost 1-to-1 with the stock price, about 0.8 to 1 right now. Gamma has been rising. Vega has been decreasing. There's a chart of the option volume for this particular option. Hardly anybody was in the option in May, and lately we've had a lot more people buy this option. This is the individual volume each day, and then this one here is the open interest. It's sort of think of it as like the outstanding shares in this option that will have to be cleared out when this option expires. So that's how you can chart each individual option. A skew chart, if you go to Option Tools, Charts, and click on Skew Chart, it first starts with another stock chart. Then it shows the first skew chart for the put and the call. And this is the skew chart of the option chain we were just looking at. Strikes are shown down here on the bottom, and implied volatility on the side. We were showing strikes that were near the stock close. Those had about a 25% implied volatility, and as you move away from the stock close, you get this smile behavior where the IV rises both as you go down and as you go up in strike for both the put and the call. The put implied volatility is considerably larger. If we are not able to compute the volatility, especially in these much lower strikes, it defaults to 0. For far away options, the skew becomes less and less dominant in the upper strikes and become more and more higher in the lower strikes. This is the effect of always people are scared that the stock will drop in price, but they're not scared that the stock will go up in price that much from here for the far out options. So that's how you can get these skew charts for a particular stock symbol. Now we'll go to our stock chart program by using Stock Tools, Charts, and clicking on Stock Chart. There's a lot of capability in the stock chart program. I'm going to start by showing how it's fairly easy to start looking at the longer time frames without just by clicking a button, the button shown here next to time. If I click time, I go to January of 2011. I go out in time again, I go to September 2011, and I can keep doing that till for about 600 days. Looks something like that. If I click on reset, I go back to the original chart that I came in here, which has about 100 trading days in the chart. Another feature here is I can chart a stock list. I'm going to select the Dow Jones 30. What happens here is it puts the stocks in the Dow Jones 30 in alphabetical order and gives me a chart of the first stock, which is Alcoa, and presents me with a new control called list symbols. And if I click to the right on that, I can get the chart of the next stock in the Dow Jones 30, American Express, Boeing, so on down the line. We're going to go back to JP Morgan. You can overlay other charts on top of the stock chart by picking a parameter for the overlay selection shown here. Very nice one to do is the 7 to 149 day at the money IV chart. Basically, this is the IV of the options that most people trade. It is you can think of it as an average of the IVs that are occurring near the close price of the stock on each day, of all those that expire from 7 to 149 days from now. Click on Update, and the stock axis here is on the left and the IV axis is on the right. Don't get that confused. We see that the IV was floating around 35 before the stock dropped. Then the IV climbed dramatically into the 40s. And finally, as the stock has settled and doesn't look like it's going to be dropping anymore, the IV has collapsed and in fact is now even lower than when it was before this action started in May in JP Morgan. We got some good earnings here. You can control the size of the chart here. I'm currently using medium to fit on YouTube. If you click on More Controls, these are more things you can put on the chart. For example, you can put a 250-day moving average on the chart, a simple moving average. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get rid of the overlay and click Update. So we see that the 50-day moving average crossed the 200 here and is heading for a bullish cross sometime into the future. Other things you can do is you can show the volume bars by clicking this box, which I already did. And here's the volume bars. We see there was a lot of volume when JP Morgan was crashing, and it's settled down quite a bit since then. Red is for down days and green is for up days. If I want to, I can change the axis by putting numbers here other than empty, and I can change the grid spacing. 0, just have the default grid spacing. If you don't like candlesticks, you can switch them to open, high, low, close there. Every time you make a change and click the update button, it saves your settings, and when you visit the chart again, those will be the settings it will use to draw the next chart. At the top, we see how many days there are to the next earnings, the estimated date of the next earnings, and then a symbol here. BMO means before market opens. AMC is after market close, and so on. Your typical earnings data information. Also, there's a stock news link, which if you click it, will open up a new window that goes to Yahoo Finance. And in Yahoo Finance, you can click on any of these links and find the news. Below the charts are columns of information. The first one on the left side shows the past dividends. We have a lot of historical dividends all the way to 2004 in many cases. JP Morgan in 2010 and 2009 dropped its dividend, but has since been raising it back and is almost back up to where it used to be in the good old days. The earnings, we show the most recent earnings that happened in July, and if we have them, we'll show the future earnings date. Sometimes we did not get the earnings, our earnings estimate, and we leave those at 0, but we do get when the last earnings date was, which is the more important thing for us. On the earnings dates, we do two computations. The first is we compute how much the close changes before and after the earnings is announced, and how much the IV changes of the 7 to 149 day IV before and after the earnings are announced. So for example, this minus 25% that occurred on July 13th, if we switch our chart over here to just look at that chart variable, this is that drop of 25% that occurred right here when that earnings was announced. Note that our moving average works on both not only the stock chart but anything you chart, including any of the IVs that you put out here. We're going to go now and drop down to, you can also chart SVs. We're going to go down here and look at put and call volume. I'm going to switch this to 90 days. JP Morgan, put and call volume. Takes a little bit for the chart to work, but there it is. So this is the put and call volume for JP Morgan. It's a sum of all the puts and all the calls for all the options from day to day. We see that when the stock suddenly started dropping, we had a lot of put and call volume. Most of it was the blue in puts. That settled down. Before earnings is announced, we get a lot of put and call volume. In this case, it was a lot of calls. People were thinking that JP Morgan was going to announce good earnings, which it pretty much did. Since then, the put and call volume has settled down quite a bit. So we show the ratios, and the open interest can also be charted. We also have the ability to do probability cones. When you select probability cones and chart it, this actually shows a probability cone and shows more selections in the controls box to work with the probability cone. It defaults to certain parameters that you can change. For example, this particular cone is going 60 days into the future. It's using a volatility of around 34.5% that it got from the 100-day IV. You can enter and change that as you wish. It also has some targets that you can add. I'll give you an example of that. I'm going to put in a target of 40 and a target of 35, and it will put 90 days in here, and it will not only put those targets as the blue lines shown here, Down here it gives a chart of what might happen with those targets and the stock. For example, this red line is the probability over time that will exceed 40, and the blue line is the probability will be less than the 32, and so on and so forth. We also have probability that will touch a target sometime in the 90-day time period, and what that probability might be as time goes by. And we also have the darknet charts if you have the darknet option in options analysis. Darknet had troubles with JP Morgan when the crash happened, but it pretty much got its handle on a nice buy signal after the last sell, and that buy signal has been doing well in the JP Morgan stock. When you use the stock channel charter, it shows these buy, rebuys, ambiguous sell signals right there on the chart for either Darknet 5 or 6. The whole website's using Darknet 5, but you can look at Darknet 6 here inside the stock chart. If we switch back to charts, to stock charts, there's some price band technology we can add. For example, we can add this IV and Bollinger Band to our stock chart. And that looks something like this. This blue is the Bollinger Band. The red is the implied volatility band, which is the stocks are thinking that 68% of the time this is where the current stock's going to be, and that's what it looked back in time as the IV changed. We have a lot of other technical indicators you can add to the chart, such as the average true range, and you can look at the RSI. These appear as additional charts. Once you select them, they'll always be there. Here, for example, is the RSI with the bands. Here's the average true range and the true range. As long as they've been selected, they'll appear in all the charts. I'm going to turn all this off for myself. So, I've shown you many of the capabilities that exist inside options analysis for charting purposes. Skew charts, option charts, and extensive stock chart analysis. Thanks for listening.